Sunday dinner is usually the highlight of the week, a time for shared stories and a table piled high with food. But for one family, a routine meal triggered a 20-hour medical crisis that no one saw coming. The menu was classic comfort food. They served a rich, deeply spiced Sunday biryani, packed with heavy fats and dense proteins. To finish, they sliced up fresh, cold watermelon, a sweet rush of hydration to wash down the spices. In the immediate aftermath, everything felt normal. The plates were cleared, and the family settled into that warm, sleepy comfort that follows a heavy feast, completely unaware of the reaction beginning inside. We often think of food purely as nourishment, but our biology views it as a series of chemical reactions. When certain ingredients meet in the wrong order, the body stops processing nutrients and starts reacting to a localized threat. The first signs of trouble surfaced around the 2-hour mark. The relaxed post-meal atmosphere was interrupted by a mild, vague stomachache, the kind of low-grade discomfort that makes you shift awkwardly in your chair. The family assumed it was just the physical weight of a large meal. They figured a little rest and some time for digestion would clear the feeling right up. By hour 4, that assumption collapsed. The dull ache sharpened, intensifying into a piercing, localized pain in the abdomen. It was no longer something that could be slept off. When we dismiss these early biological signals, we inadvertently give a dangerous internal reaction the window it needs to escalate. Between hours 5 and 12, the symptoms became violent. Agonizing gastric cramps came in waves, followed by the onset of rapid, uncontrollable fluid loss. Frantic anxiety replaced the earlier calm. The usual home remedies, antacids and rest, did absolutely nothing to dull the pain or slow the progression of the illness. The sudden loss of water and electrolytes quickly drained the patient's energy. They became lethargic, struggling to stay alert as the body's internal balance began to tilt. At the 12-hour mark, the family reached a critical realization. Looking at their loved one's pale skin and exhausted state, they knew the situation had surpassed the limits of home care. The digestive tract had effectively shut down. Instead of processing the meal, the body was locked in a losing battle to purge a massive buildup of internal toxicity. To understand how a normal meal turns dangerous, we have to look at differential digestion rates. Different foods require vastly different amounts of time and specific enzymes to break down. This diagram shows the mechanics of the stomach. When you eat heavy, fat-laden biryani, it creates a slow-moving roadblock. Those complex proteins and oils take hours to process, effectively sealing off the lower exit valve. Watermelon is mostly water and simple sugars. On an empty stomach, it digests in minutes. But here, it drops right on top of that dense biryani, getting trapped in the upper chamber. Trapped in a 98-degree acidic environment, the sugar-rich watermelon begins to rapidly ferment. It can't move forward, so it begins to break down prematurely right where it sits. This fermentation triggers a sudden spike in bacterial growth. As these bacteria feed on the fermenting sugars, they produce gas and toxic byproducts, creating intense internal pressure that the body urgently tries to expel. The danger is a matter of sequencing. Eating fast-digesting sugars immediately after slow-digesting fats creates an environment where bacteria can thrive before the food even reaches the intestines. By the 18th hour, the family was rushing to the emergency room. With the patient unable to retain any fluids for over half a day, the risk of kidney stress and metabolic collapse was becoming a reality. Doctors immediately started aggressive treatment. They used high-volume intravenous fluids to stabilize the patient's blood pressure and began flushing the bacterial infection from their system. Finally, at the 20-hour mark, the patient's vital signs normalized. The violent cramps subsided, and the immediate physical crisis began to resolve. This transition from a routine dinner to acute clinical distress shows how narrow the margin can be when the body's internal chemistry is pushed to its limit by a simple dietary oversight. The emotional relief in the hospital room was palpable, but the family's approach to the dinner table had changed for good. The medical takeaway is simple. Always leave a significant time gap between a heavy, fat-rich meal and fast-digesting fruits. You have to give your stomach the time it needs to clear the first load before introducing the next. Protecting our health starts with understanding the subtle biological mechanics happening on our plates and making sure our choices align with how our bodies actually work.